probably Aramean text, Arab Christian text. Chronology of exploration. This is a chronology of the early exploration, and it shows that the age of exploration was not a one-way street. Exploration, trade, colonization and conquest went hand in hand from its earliest times. The Egyptians, Sumerians, Akkadians, Phoenicians and the Greeks provide us with the first written documents on papyrus, cuneiform clay tablets and in rock inscriptions. Along with these explorers went their language. With their language came their world of thoughts, their religion, their culture and their laws. Contrary to common belief, most civilizations did not grow isolated but in context with all other civilizations. They got in touch with and this included also single persons who boldly dared to discover what may lay behind endless horizons. And it goes on about Egyptian history. Around 850 BC, Greek pirates learned from Phoenician pirates, and so the Phoenician characters became the model for the Greek alphabet. In the 8th century, Greek pirates became explorers and colonists in the footsteps of the Phoenicians, who claimed northwest Africa and southern Spain. The Greeks took northern Spain, Italy, the Balkans, Asia Minor and the Black Sea shores. They became the Phoenicians, fierce rivals. Homer, Greek, Homeros, flourished during the late 8th or early 17th, the 8th or early 7th centuries BC, and Anaximander, Greek, Anaximandros, around 16 to 546 BC, wrote about these legendary times of exploration and conquest, and so forth. There's a lot of history there. Alexander the Great, etc. Very interesting. A lot of information there. And then it goes into trading, the Romans trading with India. Within this Grand Bible, there's actually a picture taken from a spaceship, modern spaceship of Egypt, with a green triangle, a certain area, and then the canal, and that was like a trade route for India to trade with Egypt in ancient times. And it's rumoured that one of them gave the other one leprosy. Here's something interesting. Italian navigator Amerigo Vespucci made several trips to the New World. He is known for convincing the Europeans that the New World is not Asia, but an entirely new unknown continent. This new double continent was soon named after him, America. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's named after an Italian, right? Navigator. This looks interesting, but the Sadducees. Just put that page back over there. And the names for people. What's this? Names for peoples. Dirty names. These are names used by the main religious denominations as curse words to make their own clientele feel uncomfortable when they hear any of those words. You can feel it yourself when you speak out loud, or You can feel it yourself when you speak out loud one or the other of these words. The kafir, or kufir, the Jew, the Catholics, the Protestants, the Gnostics, the Manichaeans, the Muslims, the Nazis, the Communists, the Socialists, Jehovah's Witnesses, the Bible, the Quran, Pharisee, heretic, apostate, Judas, etc., etc. We are talking here about an old psychological propaganda trick that should dehumanize others. The chief aim of this trick is to make you feel so uncomfortable that you hardly dare to talk about those things, and in particular it should prevent you to look up for those things. This propaganda trick is closely connected to the topic political correctness. In the Grand Bible, you may find one or the other dirty name or document you may feel uncomfortable with. However, here is a chance to get yourself informed about things you do not know yet. Use it. Remember, religion has been invented to gain control and power over the population. Being a heretic, non-believer, or apostate makes you a traitor or defector to such a power base, and they make you liable to be treated accordingly. The Jews is one name for two distinct kind of people or denominations. The first meaning refers to the Jew of antiquity, of ancient days, right? Ancient eras, of old. Jesus and his entire family, his disciples, and all other people whose religion was the Judaism of antiquity. The second meaning refers to the modern Jew and the modern religion, which is known as Rabbinic Judaism, but correctly should be named Roman Judaism, as it was heavily influenced by Greek Roman philosophy and law. The main differences between those two Judaism were created by the administration of the Roman imperial cult that sent out editors who changed some of the Jewish scripture, such as the Mishnah, Sanhedrin, the main Jewish law book, which has been edited by a member of the imperial court of either Emperor Nero or Emperor Flavius Vespasianus. So there's some details there that's been Romanized. The Romans then destroyed the militant fundamentalistic scripture of the ancient Jews that contained hatred and propaganda against the Romans. Yeah, because they didn't like the idea that they were being depicted as the bad guys. They always wanted to look like the good guys. So yeah, there's a no-no. You couldn't write or etch anything into anything or say that they were bad guys, or else you'd be in big trouble. Archaeologists found them in the Qumran caves in 1947, and soon identified them as writings by the Messianic movement that were instigating several wars against the Roman Empire. So it's talking about these scenes. Yeah, these scenes, because they were waiting for this apocalypse, to happen, and then Rome will be destroyed, and then the suck-ups, the Pharisees, and all that sort of stuff, they would be destroyed as well, and then they'd move in there, or something like that. But it never happened. They ended up getting massacred by the Romans. The modern Jews have nothing to do with those ancient fanatics who were much hated. Modern Judaism could be described as Christianity without Jesus. Modern Jews are mainly peaceful, educated, virtuous, and hard-working people. Okay, we saw a video on YouTube where this grandma was telling her, it's like a mother or a grandma was telling her son or granddaughter, no. She's telling them something completely different. Why they don't want to go to America, all this sort of stuff. Okay, we're not going to mention anything about that here. Yeah. It's just what she said, right? It's better for them to stay in Israel. Or they feel that it is. Okay, modern Jews are mainly peaceful, educated, virtuous, and hard-working people. Jewish hatred against these people, also called anti-Semitism, is totally unfounded and comes up by ignorance and lack of education. The ancient Messianic movement, however, has, according to text analysis, a direct descendant, Islam. The Pharisees were a social movement and a school of thought in the Holy Land during the time of Second Temple Judaism. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, Pharisaic beliefs became, with the help of the Romans, the foundational liturgical and ritualistic basis for the so-called Rabbinic Judaism, Greek Roman Judaism. So is that what it is today? The Rabbi movement? Is that what it really is? Rabbinic Judaism, Greek Roman Judaism. The word Pharisees derived from ancient Greek Phariseos, from Aramaic Parisha, plural Parishaya, related to the Hebrew verb parash, meaning set apart, separate. What had set the Pharisees apart from mainstream Judaism, which was nationalistic and anti-Greek and anti-Roman at that time? The Pharisees were on the one hand strictly observant to Jewish traditions and the law of Moses, or the law of God, but on the other hand also embraced the Greek Roman civilization. By the Jewish Messianic nationalists, Pharisees were viewed as opportunists and traitors. After the end of the Jewish-Roman War in 73 AD, which was also a Jewish civil war to a larger extent, sectarianism vanished. The Essenes, Sadducees, Zealots and Starkey disappeared into the Arabian deserts, while the early Christians and the Pharisees survived in territories of the Roman Empire, the latter transforming into the rabbinic, or more precise Roman Judaism that we today know simply as Judaism. The term Pharisee was no longer used, perhaps because it was a term more often used by non-Pharisees, but also because the term was explicitly sectarian, and the Greek Roman influenced rabbis claimed leadership over all Jews. In some cultures, the word Pharisee is only used as curse word for opportunist, implying that this person has no honour. The Sadducees or Zadokites, Hebrew Z-D-K, Zadukim, were a sect or group of Jews that were active in Judea during the Second Temple period, starting from the 2nd century BC. Okay, this is not us saying this, so we shouldn't get no copyright claim or that sort of stuff, or strike or whatever, because this is what is written in the Grand Bible by these people, not us. Yeah, we're just reviewing this book, etc., presenting this book. So yes, these people, Dave Starkey, that should be, blamed. Okay. The Sadducees or Zadokites, Hebrews, etc., were a sect or group of Jews that were active in Judea during the Second Temple period, starting from the 2nd century BC through the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. The word Sadducee comes from Zadokite, Zadik. The Aramaic Hebrew word ZDK means righteous, just. The sect was identified by Titus Flavius Josephus with the upper social and economic echelon of Judean society. As a whole, the sect fulfilled various political, social and religious roles, including maintaining the temple. The Sadduceic sect of Judaism drew their name from Zadok, the first high priest of ancient Israel to serve in the first temple, with the leaders of the sect proposed as the Kohanim, priests, the sons of Zadok, descendants of Eleazar, son of Aaron. The name Zadok, being related to the root Zadik, to be righteous, just, is also a sobriquet that was used in particular for James, Jacob, the brother of Jesus, due to his strict traditional mindset focusing on obeying the covenant of Moses. The Essenes, modern Hebrew, Isiyim, Greek, Isanoi, Isaioi, Asaioi, were a group of Jewish sects during the Second Temple. Period that flourished from the second century BC to the 1st century AD. The Roman historian Titus Flavius Josephus records that Essenes existed in large numbers and thousands lived throughout Roman Judea, but they were fewer in number than the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the other two major sects at the time. The Essenes lived in various cities but congregated in communal life dedicated to voluntary poverty, like the descendants, the Ebionites, Nazareans, and some Gnostics. Daily immersion and asceticism, their priestly class practiced celibacy. Most scholars claim they seceded from the Zadokite priests. The Essenes have gained fame in modern times as a result of the discovery of religious documents known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were commonly believed to be the Essenes library because Qumran was an Essene settlement. This turned out to be wrong. The documents that were stored in caves above Qumran belonged to several different Judaic sects. The first reference to the sect is by the Roman writer Pliny the Elder, died around 79 AD. In his Natural History, Pliny relates in a few lines that the Essenes possessed no money, had existed for thousands of generations, and that their priestly class, contemplatives, do not marry, so they're celibates. Right? Unlike Philo of Alexandria, who did not mention any particular geographical location of the Essenes other than the whole land of Israel, Pliny places them somewhere above Ein Gedi, near Masada and the Qumran caves. The Zealots represent political anti-Greek and anti-Roman movements in 1st century Second Temple Judaism, which sought to incite the people of Judea province to rebel against the Roman Empire and expel it from the Holy Land by force of arms, most notably during the First Jewish-Roman War, 66 to 70 AD. Their teachings mandates also offensive warfare against non-believers, just like Islam has done after them. Zealotry was a term used by Titus Flavius Josephus for a fourth sect or fourth Jewish philosophy during this period. The term zealot, the common translation of the Hebrew kanai, plural form kananim, means one who is zealous on behalf of God. The term derives from Greek zealotes, emulator, zealous, admirer or follower. And you had the Sicarii, modern Hebrew, Sikarim, were a radical jihadist group of the Jewish zealots who strongly opposed any Greek and Roman influence in the Holy Land and attempted to expel them and their sympathizers from the area by all sorts of terror attacks. In Latin, Sicarii is the plural form of Sicarius, dagger man, dagger wielder. Sica here comes from the root sicor, to slice. In later Latin usage, Sicarius was also the standard term for a murderer. Lucius Cornelius Sulia Felix, around 138 to BC to 78 BC, known commonly as dictator Sulla, was the Roman general, legislator of and statesman who created the Lex Cornelia de Sicaris et Beneficius, created by dictator Cornelius Sulla, which defined laws and punishments against sexual mutilation known as circumcision. These laws were directed against the Sicarii and all their activities, as they were also known as the circumcision men. The Sicarii carried sikai, or small daggers, concealed in their cloaks. At public gatherings they pulled out these daggers to attack Romans and Hebrew Roman sympathizers alike, blending into the crowd after the deed to escape detection. The Sicarii are regarded as one of the earliest known organized assassination units of cloak and daggers, predating the Islamic Hashishin and other jihadists. The Sicarii were particularly active in the decades preceding Jerusalem's destruction in 70 AD. The Roman army annihilated all of them mercilessly. Oh, was it miraculous? It should be mercilessly, right? Thousands of Sicarii were crucified and torn to death by predators and gladiators in the Roman amphitheatres. The survivors fled to Arabia. As suggests you look at the section on Judas Iscariot. Ebionites, Greek Ebionaioi, is a patristic term referring to a Jewish Christian movement that existed during the early centuries of the Christian era. The term Ebionites derives from the common adjective for poor in Hebrew, singular, Ebion plural, Ebionim, which occurs 15 times in the Psalms and was a self-given term of some pious Jew circles. For example, Psalm 69:33, for the Lord heareth the poor. And one, how was that, QP Hub 12:3:16. The term Ebionim was also a self-description given by the people who were living in Qumran, as shown in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The term the poor was at first a common designation for all Christians, a reference to their material and voluntary poverty. Since historical records by the Ebionites are scarce, fragmentary and disputed, much of what is known or conjectured about the Ebionites derives from the church fathers who wrote polemics against the Ebionites, who they deemed heretical Judaizers. of Judaizers. Consequently, very little about the Ebionite sect or sects is known with certainty, and most, if not all, statements about them are conjectural. Scholars, like the church fathers of the first centuries after Jesus, consider the Ebionites identical with the Nazarenes. And it goes on about that. Let's go down the bottom here. Modern Hebrew still uses the biblical Hebrew term the needy, both in histories of Christianity for Ebionites and for all almsgiving to the needy at Purim. They regarded Jesus the Nazarene as a real Messiah because of his opposition to those who wanted to fight against the Romans. They rejected all parts of Paul's Roman Christianity, such as Jesus' divinity. They used only one of the Jewish Christian Gospels, the Hebrew book of Matthew. Starting at chapter 3, revered James, the brother of Jesus, James the Just, but rejected Paul the Apostle as traitor, liar, and an apostate from the law. Their name suggests that they placed a special value on voluntary poverty. Ebionim was one of the terms used by a sect of Essenes at Qumran, who sought to separate themselves from the corruption of the temple. They have embraced the teachings of Jesus but remain Jewish in following the laws of Moses in the Torah. Distinctive features of the gospel of the Ebionites include the absence of the virgin birth and of the genealogy of Jesus, an adoptionist Christology in which Jesus is chosen to be God's son at the time of his baptism, the abolition of the Jewish sacrifices by Jesus, and an advocacy of vegetarianism. And it talks about the Nazarenes. The name used by Tertullus survives into Mishnaic and modern Hebrew as Notzarim, a standard Hebrew term for Christian. It's in regards to Nazarene. And also into the Quran in modern Arabic as Nasara, plural of Nasrani, meaning Christians. The Greek epithet Nazarios is applied to Jesus 14 times in the New Testament and is used once in Acts of the Apostles. That'll probably be in the Greek, right? Greek translation of Scripture. However, unlike half of the Ebionites, they accepted the virgin birth. And it goes on about the Nazarenes. And it goes on to about the Gentile, Messiah in Judaism, Hebrew Messiah, Greek Messias or Christos, Arabic Masih. Messianic movement, ancient Jewish and Christians, or as a word for the group Christianity, or as a word for the unity Christendom, older term as Nazarene or Nazarene, which means keeper or of Moses' law, and Galilean, which refers to the Roman province of Galilee, are people who follow, adhere to Christianity, an Abrahamic religion based on the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. The words Christ and Christian derive from the Koine Greek title Christos, a translation of the biblical Hebrew term Mashiach, Messiah, meaning anointed one. The term Christian came into use first at the end of the 1st century. While there are diverse interpretations of Christianity, which sometimes conflict, they are united in believing that Jesus has a unique significance. Today, about 30% of all Christians live in the Americas, about 25% live in Europe, 24% live in sub-Saharan Africa, about 20% live in Asia and the Pacific, and less than 1% live in the Middle East and North Africa, as Islam's Sharia has contributed to their decline. While Christianity is in decline in Europe, it is, with about 10% or roughly 140 million people, on the rise in China, which is now surprisingly the 4th largest Christian country in the world. About half of all Christians worldwide are Catholic, while more than a third are Protestant, 37%. Orthodox communions comprise 12% of the world's Christians. Christians also claim that their religion be monotheistic. This claim is false, as Jesus is seen as a second God. See Nazarenes. Yeah, it's more polytheism, right? It's more polytheistic. The Catholic Church, also known as the Roman Catholic Church, is the largest Christian church with approximately 1.3 billion baptized Catholics worldwide as of 2017. So imagine how many there are now. It is the largest Christian church in the world. It teaches that it is the same church started by Jesus Christ and its former protege 2,000 years ago. Well, that's incorrect. Because they had a church in Jerusalem, so how could they be that first church, right? Well, in the sense that it was a congregation, like they gathered in a house or something like that, right? Not necessarily a church. And did all their things that they did. Their talks and feasts and all that sort of stuff. It teaches that it is the same church started by Jesus Christ and his former protege 2,000 years ago. Or his disciples or someone like that, like Peter or whatever, right? The headquarters of the Catholic Church is in the Vatican City in Rome. The word Catholic comes from the Greek word katholikos, which means universal. And that's the word, but with a C, that the Apostolic Church of the East uses. The Apostolic Orthodox Katholikos, Church of the East. It was first used in the Nicene Creed. Often the word Roman is added because it has its origin in the Roman Empire. That's relating to the Roman Catholic Church, not the Apostolic Orthodox Church. The Catholic Church is the church of the Western Roman Empire with Latin, the language of the Romans, and the city of Rome as its capital. In the eastern part of the Roman Empire rules the Orthodox Church with Greek and Slavonic. Both churches share the same principles. Sort of pally, aren't they? Power, politics in the Middle Ages divided them. See schism. The leader of the Roman Catholic Church is called the Pope, which literally means father. Catholics say Jesus Christ established the Catholic Church and appointed the first Pope, a disciple of his named St. Peter, to lead all Christians, which is a myth. It's a total fabrication, right? The first church leader was James, the brother of Jesus and Bishop of Jerusalem, who was killed in the turmoils before, maybe in 62 or 63 AD, or in the first Jewish-Roman War, 66 to 73 AD, and the second leader was Simon, another brother of Jesus. The Eastern Orthodox Church, or the Orthodox Church, or by its full name, the Holy Orthodox Catholic Apostolic Church, is a Christian church. The type of Christianity is also called Orthodox Christianity, or Orthodoxy. The members are called Orthodox Christians, although there is another group of churches called Oriental Orthodox that is not in communion with the Orthodox Church. There are about 300 million Orthodox Christians in the world, and so forth. Most of them in the Middle East, found in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. And you had the Protestant Church or Reformed Church. It began in Germany in the early 16th century. And you have the erroneously called or named Nestorian Church. He was never the founder of the Apostolic Orthodox Church of the East. They just agreed with something they said about hypostasis, Jesus being both divine and man, or both God and man. And they got hell for it. Because Nestorius had a meeting with a guy called, probably a Roman Catholic called Cyril, and he wanted to be the bishop of all bishops, but he knew that this Nestorius would be. So he started creating assumptions and all this sort of stuff, calling him a heretic. And so, basically, because they agreed with his hypostasis stance, they said, yeah, we agree with him. But 1,000 years before we were saying that, they got labelled heretics, etc., etc. And then there's one particular priest of a church of the East that said, look, to the interview, if you keep calling me Nestorian, or us Nestorian, we're going to have to go to war. You just like, it's a bit of humour, right? But he says, well, we weren't founded. He's not our founder. He was never our founder. But because they keep putting that label on them, they just rolled with it. They've been being called that for years and years and years, centuries and centuries. So they just rolled with it, went with it. The Nestorian Church is a Christian denomination originating in Asia Minor and Syria, out of the condemnation of Nestorius and his teachings by the Council of Ephesus, 8431, and Chalcedon, 8451. So they got hell for it. Yeah. Because he got condemned, and because they believed in his hypostasis theory, that Jesus was both God and man, they got hell, as he did. Nestorians stress the independence of the divine and human natures of Christ. Again, they're not the Nestorian church. That's erroneous. It's wrong. Okay? The Nestorian church became the dominant form of Christianity in Persia. Christianity in Persia faced intimate persecution until the Persian church in 424 formally proclaimed its full independence of Christian churches elsewhere. So it split from the Roman Catholic Church. Okay? It didn't agree with certain things. Probably the worship of Mary or something like that. Yes, they split. Yeah, so they got persecuted until the Persian church in 424 formally proclaimed its full independence of Christian churches elsewhere, thereby freeing itself of suspicion about foreign links. After the Islamic conquest of Persia 637, the Caliphate recognized the Church of the East as a millet or separate religious community and granted it legal protection. See the edict or the Treaty of Umar, for which the Nestorians had to pay the jizya. That's a special tax. A special tax only paid by non-Muslims who wanted to survive under the Islamic rule. Nestorian Christians were driven east to India. A group of Nestorians under the leadership of Alopen, Chinese Alopu, fled from the Islamic conquest that was ravaging Syria and Persia in the 630s and turned up in China, where they arrived in the capital Chang'an, Xi'an, in 635 AD. So maybe that group of people are the ones that are responsible for that black stele. It's got like Chinese at the top and then Aramaic underneath. Maybe it's them. In Central Asia, the Nestorian church flourished and certain Tatar tribes were almost entirely converted. Christian expansion reaching almost to Lake Baikal in eastern Siberia. Western travellers to the Mongol realm found Nestorian Christians well established there, even at the court of the great Khan, Genghis Khan, though they commented on the ignorance and superstition of the clergy. When during the 14th century the Church of the East was virtually annihilated by the genocide raids of the Islamic leader Timur, or Tamerlane, killing about 35 million non-Muslims, Nestorian communities lingered on in Kurdistan, and many thousands have been killed by Islamic jihadists of ISIS. So that's how many centuries they've been persecuted. Okay? Why did ISIS do this? Because the Kurds handed them over. They had their juices and all that sort of stuff where they lived. So they backstabbed them, went and pimped on them to these ISIS who rounded them up. That sort of stuff.